Hello, everyone. Today I wanted to talk about the inspiration on how I got into fitness and health and everything like that, and how I first started. This is before me beginning lifting weights. This is before I started working out in like a gym setting. So I first started exercising and trying to get into better shape when I was around 11 and 12 years old. So I was in sixth grade. I was really getting into like military action movies and stuff like that. Like I watched American Sniper and like we were soldiers and stuff like that. And I really liked like Navy SEAL stuff. And I thought that's what I want to do when I grow up. I want to be a fucking Navy SEAL. I want to go out and kill terrorists in Afghanistan and shit. And so I started doing like, I started researching online, like, what Navy SEALs do and stuff like that. Like watching all these YouTube videos where they're carrying the logs and everything on their shoulders and doing all these, workouts during Hell Week and everything. And I just started there. I started doing push-ups, sit-ups, running, swimming in the pool we have. And then one of the guys from my parents' work had a book, like a Navy SEAL workout book. So I took this Navy SEAL workout book that he let me borrow, and I went through it, and I was doing all these calisthenics, doing the programs in there. But I wasn't really following the programs like strictly. I was doing my own thing, like running, swimming. And at this time, I was so like intrinsically driven and motivated and had so much willpower that I didn't care what people said if I was doing too much or not doing something right. I really didn't care. I just kept going. And so when I was 11 and 12 years old, I was a little bit chubby for my age. But everybody at that age is, you know, usually gets a little bit, chubby or gains a little bit extra body fat because usually you're going to have a growth spurt in your teenage years. But also me, like before even getting into fitness, I was just I feel like I wanted to be fat. Like I wanted to just eat as much as I could. And I've always loved food, and I love food to this day, and I just love eating a bunch of volume of food. But when I started the Navy SEAL training and stuff, I was doing the training, and then plus I was trying to eat healthy, because they say, you have to have a good diet too. And I was ignorant to the fact of how to create or structure a good diet. Like, I was eating clean foods and stuff, but I wasn't eating hardly any carbs, hardly any dietary fat. The only thing I was focused on was just protein because, I didn't really know. I was kind of ignorant to the fact, that you need all of those macronutrients. One, to provide energy, and then two, to, fats help with your hormone regulations and stuff. But yeah, I just kept eating less and less and doing more and more. And I kept losing weight. And at first, people were saying, "Oh yeah, you look good. You lost a little bit of weight." And I felt like, especially my parents thought they think that made me want to go even further and keep driving that ball, keep that ball rolling. And that's what I thought in my head. I thought I still needed to lose some weight, and I thought I was still fat in my mind, even though I was getting really skinny. And so there was one time I remember a few people saying, I was telling them, I've been working out and stuff. And one guy said, man, you need to be eating like crazy. You need to be, pounding food down because, you're, doing all this running and swimming and stuff. And it was a lot. It was to the point where I kind of knew in the back of my mind that it was a lot, but I just had that mental willpower that I didn't want to quit. And so there'd be times where, obviously like my blood pressure was probably really low. My sugar was obviously down because I wasn't eating any carbs. But I'd wake up, say in the middle of the night, and I'd get up real quick, and everything would turn black. Like it's almost like a screen went over my eyes and I couldn't see anything. And I just thought, hey, that's just a part of it, I guess. There was another time when my cousin, he came over and stayed the night, and he's big into was big into playing video games, probably more than I was at the time, especially since I was doing all the working out and Navy SEAL training. But I said I gotta do my exercises. So I was over there in the basement on the floor doing push-ups, sit-ups and stuff, and he was playing video games. And he asked me at one point, he said, dude, you're not even really working out. You're just laying around half the time. And he was right, because I was so low on energy and not eating hardly anything that I'd do a set and I'd lay on the floor like dead for like 5 minutes. Do a set, and it extended the training session out for like 2, 3, almost 4 hours. And I was a kid at the time, like during the summer, so I had the time. It wasn't like I was working a job or anything. I was only 11 and 12 years old. So it got to the point, this is probably where it got really bad. Like it got to the point to where I was only eating, 3 meals a day. I wasn't eating, like 5 or 6 or anything like that. And it got to the point where for breakfast, I'd have 1 egg and 1 piece of turkey bacon. Maybe 2 pieces of turkey bacon. And then for lunch, at first I was doing like a wrap, like some low calorie wrap from Aldi. And then I got the roast beef, like lunch meat. It tasted the worst. It probably wasn't even the best for you, but it had no, added fat or added carbs. That's the reason why I got it. It just had strictly protein. And I just do that. And then half the time, I'd make it in the morning in front of my parents so they knew I was eating the wrap. But then when I got where I was going that day, I'd throw the wrap away and just eat the lunch meat, because I thought that's all I needed was the protein. And then for dinner, I'd have like a small little can of tuna, just like a can about that big. And again, 0 grams of carbs, 0 grams of fat. It had all just protein in it. It was, what you could get was 0 grams of protein. And I was eating that little, probably not even 500, probably not even 400 calories worth of food, and doing all that training, running, swimming, push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, all that Navy SEAL shit. And I just kept getting skinnier and skinnier. And it got to the point where I think my parents, they realized, because we went on a trip to Orlando Studios that year for our vacation. And, I was skinny as a twig. I was basically a walking skeleton. I was half out of it the whole time. I wasn't eating any of the things that, most people and kids eat at that age, when they're experiencing that. Going to the Harry Potter world and drinking the butterbeer and having the different, fudge and chocolate and stuff like that. Enjoying that at a young age. And I couldn't do it because I was so mentally fucked in the head that I didn't do that shit. I just ate my same little shit, and so then shortly after that, I know this part of the story isn't about the weightlifting journey and stuff. This is just how everything happened, and kind of is how my mind is today, in the way of, discipline and stuff like that. But after that trip, we got back, and my parents took me to the doctor, and the doctor said, I was in I was before, that year before, I was in the 90th percentile growth range and everything like that. And he said, I wasn't hardly anywhere where I near was. So he told my parents that I needed to go to a treatment facility for kids with eating disorders, because I had anorexia. I had anorexia nervosa, which is basically a eating disorder where you're afraid to eat, and you get so malnourished that it fucks up your body. and it ain't in your mind. But so they sent me to this. They sent me to this eating disorder treatment facility in Durham, North Carolina. So it's about 2.5, 3 hours from here in Virginia. And when I went in, like they did all like they pulled labs, they did all this different stuff. And before I actually went into the facility, my dad took a picture of me, and I wish I could find that picture, or I wish he had that picture still so I could show it. But like literally, I looked like a walking skeleton. I was near death. I think if my parents wouldn't have put me in there, within 2 weeks I would have been dead. If less than that, like my body would have just gave up because I wasn't eating hardly anything. It wasn't enough for it. And so they put me. The first day I went in there, like I said, they pulled labs, they did all these vital tests and everything, and they put me in there, and I don't think I knew what I was getting into, because it was an inpatient facility. I literally lived there. I lived in there for 12 weeks. Like I had some like overnight, I think it was like 1 or 2 overnight things where I could go and stay at the apartment that my parents had down there while I was down there. But that was just to get me kind of used to the outside environment before I went into the partial hospitalization therapy there. But yeah, so I went in there, and it was an eye-opener for me, I'm gonna have to say, because like there was a lot of kids that were probably worse than me. Like they weren't as skinny as me, but they were fucked up in the head. Like either they wanted to like scratch themselves and kill themselves or whatever. It wasn't a lot of those, but there was a lot kids that they didn't want to eat shit. They just refused everything, even water. They wouldn't drink water. They were so scared they would gain weight from water. And those kids got feeding tubes, which it doesn't make any sense, because you're not going to eat the food, you're not going to drink the water, but you're going to let somebody else pump liquid of probably even higher calories through a tube into your stomach, through your nose into your stomach. And they said, because like the first few meals I kind of restricted, because the way they had it set up is, so when you go and eat, you sit there, and you got 30 minutes to eat. They set a timer, and if you don't eat everything within that 30 minutes, they'll offer you, like if you don't eat anything, they'll offer you like a big Boost supplement thing, which contains like 2 Boost drinks. If you eat like probably about half, they'll do just one in a small little cup. And then if you don't drink that, that's when you're restricting. And if you do that so many times, then you get put on a feeding tube. And I did not want to get put on a feeding tube. I did not want no fucking tube shoved down my nose and into my stomach. I just was not for that. So I remember the first time I drank that shake or whatever, I didn't want to do it, because I was eating all the protein on the plate, but I wasn't eating any of the carbs, any of the fats, or anything like that. I just despised them. And it was like, I think it was like less than 5 minutes left on the counter, because they gave you like 15 minutes, 10 or 15 minutes to like drink your shake or whatever. And it was like 5 minutes left, and I was just sitting at the table with my parents, with my head down like that. And I was just crying, because I didn't want to do it, but I knew if I didn't do it, they would put a fucking feeding tube in me. So I think like the last minute or something like that, I just chugged the bitch. I just chugged it. Just drank it real quick. And I was just crying, because I thought I just, I don't know what I thought I just did, but so good news is I've never got a feeding tube in me. But that place was so, the thing that got me to get out of that facility, or at least out of the inpatient facility first, was just the boredom of it. I hated it. I couldn't, because you go from running, swimming, doing push-ups, sit-ups, crunches, everything like that, and then you go from that to just sitting on a fucking couch all day. And then whatever activity you get from walking from there to the cafeteria. And it, dude, it fucks with you. It fucks with your head, everything like that. And it was just so boring. I can't tell you how fucking boring it was going all those therapy sessions and everything like that. That was the motivator that made me want to get out of that situation. So I think it was probably a little bit, it might have been like 4 weeks into me being there. I was still doing the same thing I did every day, you know, eating the protein, drinking the supplements, supplement shakes, and that was it. You know, I wasn't eating any of the other food. So I had like a session, I think, with my mom and like the therapist or whatever. And I said, you know, I think maybe I might just start eating the fruits and vegetables too. The protein, the fruits and vegetables. Because at that point, I was realizing that the only way I was going to get out of there was if I acted like a normal person and ate all my shit, ate all the food and everything like that. So I said, fuck it. I said, well, first I told him, yeah, I'm going to start eating the protein and the fruits and the vegetables. And that's it. I'm not eating the carbs because I know those are bad. In my head, that's what I thought. But I got in there. I think I did that the first time. And they still gave me like half a supplement shake or something like that. So in the end, it was probably more calories than, like, eating the stuff plus the supplement shake was probably more calories than just eating everything. So the next time I went in there, I ate everything. I ate everything on the plate. And, yeah, it mentally fucked with my head, but I knew, and at that point, I was just kind of like the Navy SEAL stuff. I was just so driven to get out of there and get out of that situation because I didn't want to be in it. And so that's what I started doing. I did that consistently. I ate every fucking thing on my plate that they gave me. Even they had like these challenge snacks and shit that were basically desserts. And, you know, every Friday they had pizza. They either order it from Domino's or, which was the other option was better, like make your own pizza. You know, you put the toppings that you wanted on, they baked it, and then you ate it. But I ate all the shit they gave me because I just wanted to get out of there. And then, so they had different like meal cards and stuff. Like you had a blue, you had a yellow, and then you had a green. So the blue meal card was the dietitian that you had assigned to you picked whatever food you were to eat. The yellow card, I forget what the yellow card was. Like you could pick some things, or you could do snacks. You could pick your snacks. I think that's what it was. But the dietitian still could pick your meals. And then the last one was the green card, and that let you do meals and snacks. Like you could go up and portion your own food and everything like that. So I got up to that, and yeah, got up to that. I don't even know how long that took me to get up there, but like I said, it finally gave me, we'd call it our date, you know, to get out of there. And I was so excited. I just wanted to be out of there. I had gone like a few outings with my parents, you know, because they give you like passes and stuff to go out. Another thing too is that when I was in there, I wanted to get out of there so bad. There was a few times I tried to elope, you know, where they call it, where you try to escape or whatever. First time, I think my mom was in there for like they were in there for like a family, you know, they had family time or whatever, like twice a day or something like that. Or like, maybe it was a therapist meeting or something. We were going back to where we were at, and I said, I'm just gonna go with her. I'm not fucking going back. And they kind of tricked me or whatever. They said, "Oh, go in this room and throw the ball at the wall. We know you're mad." It was like like the room that you can't hurt yourself in with the padded walls and everything. So I threw the ball at the wall, and then they took her. They took her and through the door and locked it. I juked a nurse though. I juked a nurse that was trying to stop me. I juked a nurse and ran around, and they shut the door right before I could get out. And then the next time, my mom was coming out of there for something, and we were coming in from like patio time. Let's do patio time, like go out in the outside on the patio or whatever, like out in the yard, and we just sat out there. We didn't do anything like special or anything. We just sat out there, just out in the sun. Because the first 2 weeks I was in there, I didn't go outside for 2 weeks. But when I got that patio time, we went out there. I don't know how many days that was, but yeah, but when I tried to come in, I saw my mom, and I'm like, I'm not fucking going back up there. I'm not going back up there. And they convinced me, I had to. Which I don't think I really had to. Because there was a few times where, like during the patio time, that I thought, what if I just run away? Just run away out here. Because there's only 2 people watching us. And they can't, like, tackle us or anything. And then they had some outings where, like, you'd go and basically like a park and do the same thing. Just sit in the sun. Like a park somewhere randomly in Durham, North Carolina. So I said, what if I just ran, But, yeah. So, after all that incidents, and I got my date or whatever to get out of there, they give you like a little canvas to make a little like painting or whatever. I guess to say you graduated from there or whatever, or were leaving there. So I did that, and then I did their partial hospitalization program there in North Carolina, where I went there during the day and then came back to the apartment at night. And I did that for 2 weeks down there in Durham, North Carolina. And then, which I was just the same thing as like what we did. It was just in a different unit. And I was with some older people too. Like not older adults, but older like teenagers and stuff like that, because they just grouped everybody together. And like I said, it was the same thing. You went in for lunch and everything, ate, whatever they cooked, everything like that. There was a lot less people in that one, because there wasn't as many people in it at the time. But got out of there, came back up to Virginia, and then every day during the week, my dad had to drive me and drop me off in the morning for the PHP thing here in Richmond, Virginia. So he'd drive me up there, drop me off. I'd do all the therapy and dumb shit like that, and then he'd come back and pick me up at the end of the day, and yeah, he'd come back and pick me up at the end of the day and bring me back home. And after I finally got out of that was probably another 4 to 6 weeks of, time in there. So I got out of that, and even after that, I still had to go. I had to go in our own time, see a fucking therapist, a psychiatrist, and a dietitian. And I had to see an endocrinologist at one point. Because they had to check my bone. When I was in Durham, North Carolina, they did a DEXA scan on my bones at the hospital at Duke University. And they said my bones were like the same brittleness of like a 70 or 80-year-old woman or something like that. So they had to do, make sure all that was good. But So I saw the dietitian for weeks. She had me on my meal plan or whatever. And it wasn't like, a specific meal plan. It was almost like kind of like a Weight Watchers thing where it'd say, okay, you get three carb, like some some portion is worth, like a quarter cup of rice is worth one carb. So if you get two carbs, you have to eat a half a cup. You get one protein is 2 ounces of, I don't even remember how it went, but they have like add-ons too, where it's basically just add-ons are basically like sweets or something like that they make you eat. And I was so dumb at that age. I thought yogurt covered pretzels was actually yogurt, so that's why I was eating them. But it's actually fucking white chocolate. So I was eating like yogurt covered pretzels and trail mix and shit. But after I got out of that, I kind of stuck with. My parents still tried to make me do like stuff that I didn't want to do. Like eat shit food and everything. Which is kind of fucked up because if if you're a kid and you want to eat healthy, you can eat healthy. I believe, but they still try to make me do shit like that. That was annoying. But yeah, I went back to school after the partial hospitalization. Like, I was out of school the whole time. I wasn't really doing a lot of work in the facility because they weren't sending a lot. But when I got back to school, everybody was like, man, where have you been the past half year? You missed half the school year. I'm like, man, I just had medical issues. I was kind of embarrassed to talk about it. Because it doesn't really happen a lot at that age, especially in men, like in boys. Because, they think, you're trying to get bigger and stronger and stuff. And, you get skinny as shit and, don't like to eat food and stuff like that. That's kind of embarrassing. But over time, I really don't care. I enjoy telling people about it to kind of prevent, especially younger kids, from having that same situation happen to them, because it was not a good experience for me. But yeah, so I'm gonna end the video here because that's a good introduction to how my mentality is now towards everything. This is almost, I don't know how long this video is gonna be after I edit it, but it's almost 30 minutes right now. But this is a good introduction on how I first got into fitness, my first, experience with it, and honestly how I did it wrong. I did it all wrong. I was, doing the right exercises and everything, but I didn't have the right structure. I didn't have the right diet. I didn't have none of that right because I was ignorant to it. I wasn't taught on it. And I thought I knew. And I didn't want to listen to other people who were, fat, like my parents, they've been overweight all their life. They're not like morbidly obese, but they're overweight. All my grandparents are overweight. All my relatives are basically overweight, most of them. So I didn't want to be like them. And I wasn't going to listen to them because they obviously don't know shit. And to this day, they don't know shit. So I listen to people who kind of want the physique or body that I want, Not exactly the same body because, you can't put somebody's body on another body. But, that same leanness and muscular aesthetics. But yeah, the next video I'll probably get into more. Yeah, I'll get into more on how I first started weightlifting, and that'll be a good story because after I came back from the treatment and everything, I wasn't allowed to exercise or anything because they were afraid I was going to relapse. So I couldn't really do any type of training or stuff like that. Besides, like, I couldn't even go to PE to do gym in 6th and 7th grade or 7th grade. I started that back up when I was in 8th grade. But in 8th grade, 9th grade was when I started lifting. So it's a good, I guess I'd say this is a good stopping point for today. And I will get back into my early days of lifting, how I started lifting, what motivated me to start lifting, and kind of branch off of that. I don't know if I'll go into my over 5 years that I've done, or I'll just tell you the story of how I started, and then I can do a separate video of what I've learned over those 5 years, what I've changed, or I might do it in all one video. But that's it for today. Thank you for watching. If you did watch, I hope this helped out some people who are either, if you're struggling with an eating disorder, or if you're struggling with anything in life, just know that just take small steps to progress, and don't make the same mistakes that I did, please, because I I don't want to see anybody end up the same way that I did, where I almost killed myself because I was malnourished, basically, and near death. So I'll end on that, and everybody have a good rest of your day.